Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Peak Human. I'm Brian Sanders. I'm the creator of the Food Lies documentary series that I'm working on daily. It's going to be amazing. Also, the owner of nosetotail.org. We got all the regenerative meat there. Support our Texas ranchers doing all the good practices. We got the beef tallow body care products. Don't put anything on your skin you wouldn't eat. Also, go back and listen to the old episodes. So many good episodes of this podcast. So many people message me about how much value they find in listening to the old episodes. Leave us a review on iTunes or any other podcast app. Share this with a friend. Today, I talked to Chris Kruger, my man. Such a good conversation. I've known this guy for years. We share a brain. He adds so much value in this podcast. This is actually one of the best podcasts I've done. If you want to know what to do to change your health, lose weight, optimize your hormones, boost your testosterone if you're a man, optimize your hormones if you're a woman. This was incredible. He's one of the best health coaches I know. He gives away so many of his secrets. He's so in line with the Sapien diet and lifestyle. Man, this one was so good. So listen to this one. He's got a lot of knowledge and experience. He's been doing this pretty much his whole life. We share a similar story with our dads and cancer. I'm telling you, this one was so cool. He's going to be doing health coaching instead of me. I'm not trying to do the health coaching thing. I'm going to let him do it. So listen to this one, message him to have him help you personally. And please enjoy this one with Chris. All right, we're live. Chris Kruger, what's up, man?
What's up, Brian?
Oh, I'm happy to be here with you. We've been friends for many years, actually. You were in the Game Changers Debunked film that we put out on YouTube Thanksgiving, how many years ago? That was awesome. When was that?
2019, we shot it.
Shot in 2019. We had shot you and Sean Baker were hilarious. Well, you were way funnier than Sean, honestly. Sean's great. He always wants to do comedy videos, but he's just kind of an old man, you know? It's like he's like a dad guy, you know, dad humor, and Chris is actually hilarious. I don't want to diss Sean Baker because he's funny as well. No shade to Sean at all. But Chris was hilarious in the Game Changers Debunked. You got to watch it on YouTube. There's two versions, one with comedy, one without. So watch that. We debunked the Game Changers, that vegan film, thoroughly. Talked about all the different athletes that had terrible. What did they do? They like got injured. They quit. They
injured, quit, retired, got slower, changed events. Basically, all bad news.
All bad news. So Chris has also been kind of with me on this journey. He knows all about the Sapien diet framework. He lives it. He's super shredded and in shape, which we'll get to. So he's kind of like my second brain. That's what I've been telling people lately, that he share a brain with me about all this stuff. You do health coaching. You help people with their testosterone, getting ripped, all this stuff, men and women. We'll get into all this later. I'm trying to hype him up because he's a man and he gets it. And it's fun to find people who get it. And just, you actually work with a lot of people, which is cool too. Instead of just, there's the PhD guys. Some people had some criticism. I did this podcast with this guy I won't mention who's a PhD, and everyone just said, hey, yeah, this is all theoretical. You're sitting there in your, lab doing your papers. You don't know what it's like to actually work with people, because that is so important. Half of it is knowing what to do. Half of it is knowing how to do it, how to motivate yourself, how to like actually enact it. So I'm going to let you talk finally. This is the longest intro I've done. But tell me more. Brag a little bit. You got to tell people what you've been doing.
Well, yeah, Brian. I mean, the thing, and you and I have talked offline where it's like, yeah, like of all the people in the ancestral health space, I really like and respect you because I really feel that you get it, and I know that that's mutual. And I don't really see myself as an influencer. Like it was so cool, like do the movie with you and Sean. But like first and foremost, I've always just been a coach. And even way back, like one of the first things I did out of college was I was coaching college football. And now I'm coaching my daughter's hockey team. And I've been throughout the whole journey a health coach. But what's really inform that coaching, like you're saying, is practically knowing how to do it. Not just, oh, PhD, this guy said this on a podcast, and PhD, that guy said that on a podcast. And now I've got to go use affiliate code for the rare flowering plant from the Malaysian rainforest. It's going to magically boost my testosterone, right? That's not the number one testosterone booster. In fact, for you guys out there, I have the number one testosterone booster for you. We can get to it on the podcast, so listen closely. Quick disclaimer though. Women, do not tune this out. I'm sure Brian and I will go back and forth a bunch here. I have a lot of female clients all across North America, I tell people my clients go from like Perth, Australia, like the most remote city in the world, all the way to Abu Dhabi, all across North America, all across Europe. So I'm working with about 100 people at a time. And I do that so I can have personal relationships with all these people. Like, that's how I like to coach, right? I could grow a bigger business and have assistant coaches, but I really like taking people on this health journey. And it's the same health journey that I've been on. And I just want to let women know that if you see my Instagram and it's like, oh, every other word is testosterone. Like if you're watching on YouTube, it's like, it literally says testosterone on his hat, right? That if you swap out a few words, what I really talk about is natural hormone optimization, right? And so that applies to men and women at every stage of life, right? From premenopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal. Like it applies to you too. And I was just, I'm DMing with all these clients every single day. And I have this woman now who's just crushing it, who came to me literally in tears of like, I'll never be young again. I'll never be thin again. I'll never be fit again. And now, I mean, she's planning the spring break trip for next year where she's going to be like, dude, I'm like a bikini model now. Like, can't believe it.
Mm.
And it's all natural hormone optimization. And what you talked about, like the PhD that has it in theory, what a lot of the science does is it informs the mainstream, right? And the mainstream view of health, not in our ancestral bubble here, but the mainstream view of health is what I call the Hunger Games, right? Where it's eat less, move more. And we do that to create a calorie deficit so that we can lose weight, right? But everyone has to know the first thing that happens when you eat less is you want to move less. Or even I pose that question to people, I'll be like, so what happens when you eat less? I want to eat more, right? So your body is not just this standby, it's an active participant. Your body's not just going to stand there and be like, oh, you want to eat less and move more? Let's do that. That's great. Your body's an active participant. And the first thing's going to happen is your body's going to fight back.
Okay, just jumping in real quick to talk about nosetotail.org. That's the regenerative meat company that I own, supporting local ranchers, super small business. It's just a boutique thing that we're doing to help support regenerative ag and the people doing the best work out there, restoring the soil, putting out the best meat, the cleanest meat. We have some specials on low PUFA pork. Pork is usually no good. It's usually factory farmed. It's usually high PUFA. It's not good. We feed them a low PUFA diet. This stuff is great. We have some specials. We pay for half your shipping. We also have the body care products. We have some free shipping options for those. You definitely want that stuff on your body, not the fake chemicals and the goop. So nosetotail.org. Thanks, guys.
So the standard approach, the mainstream approach is, over the course of your lifetime, people will go on 6 serious diets, right? And it's so simple. It's all about energy balance. So I eat less and I move more, and that creates the calorie deficit so I can lose weight. But your body says, no, you don't. I'm just going to slow down your metabolism and erase that calorie deficit. Or I'm going to trigger the hormones or crash the hormones. And what that looks like is I've got way more hunger. That's ghrelin, way more hunger hormone. I've got way more cortisol, way more stress hormone. So now I'm hungry and stressed. I'm eating less, so I'm more tired. I'm using all my willpower to stay on the treadmill for you get on the treadmill for a minute, you want to get off. So you stay on the treadmill for the other 59 minutes, all willpower. So your metabolism slows down, your calories crash. For men, your testosterone crashes, growth hormone crashes, and your body's fighting back and draining your willpower to do all that. And that's where eat less, move more. They say, oh, this is the simple formula for weight loss. It's actually the simple formula for weight loss, immediately followed by regaining even more. You lose some, gain more on that formula. And,
Yeah.
Brian, like that wasn't my experience in my 20s, though, right? In my 20s, as like a young man, and you have this like natural hormone advantage, I could make that mainstream approach work. And the whole reason I even got into health and fitness, and we've talked about this, is our dads both died of cancer, right? And that kind of set you on your journey. And what's interesting is I think you shortcutted about 12 years of my journey because my dad died of cancer when I was 18. And there were things that, I wasn't mature enough or didn't have like the space to step back and look at. But my dad really lived a low testosterone life, right? So he had like the big, not huge belly, but the big belly where it was definitely visceral fat, right? About my height, but skinny arms and legs, big belly, a lot of it under the abdominal wall, not the subcutaneous fat under the skin, but under the abdominal wall. And so you lead that low testosterone life. It leads to chronic Western disease. So yeah, he had type 2 diabetes, but he's also developing cardiovascular disease and atrial fibrillation and high blood pressure, and then cancer as well, right? So the thing is, once you get that metabolic dysregulation, right, is that one of those things is going to get you. And it was actually cancer that got him when I was 18. And so I don't think I had the perspective that you had at 30 because we're literally born in the same year, right? We're the same age. Uh, your college best friend is like my college best friend's brother. Like it's weird, like how connected we are before we even met. Um, but yeah, so my dad dies at 18. Like so that starts my health journey. Like I want to be healthy. I want to look supremely fit. I want to look the part, be the part. I don't want to be the guy that you know later in life is suffering from this low testosterone. And I wouldn't have even called it that at that time. But just that like my dad was, fat, sick, and weak and unhealthy. And that launched me, but at the time it was still the mainstream approach. Like I did my original back in the day, I was like one of the original, and I don't even like the word I don't think the word influencer really applies to me. Like that's not, I first and foremost, I'm a coach, like a health coach, actually like hands-on with my
Yeah.
clients. But I had this big YouTube video and I was one of like the first fitness YouTube channels. And so I was sending the program that I was doing to be fit and healthy. And, at 22, I had like an 8-pack and this like super shredded jawline and like looked amazing. And so just being on YouTube, people would hit me up for that program. But even back then, it was like, okay, we got to really lock in on the calories and then do more exercise to burn more calories. And I did that all throughout my 20s with like pretty great results, even like coming back from a back injury. And then at 30, I was like done. Right. So I was my wife and I were going out to get married. David Esterman is at the wedding. And we were getting married on on Oahu, right? We're going to Hawaii. So I was like, in pretty good shape. And from New Year's to the wedding, I had 6 weeks where I'm like, okay, I'm going to absolutely crush it. I'm going to get in great shape. These photos last a lifetime. We're getting married in Hawaii. We're staying there for the honeymoon. I'm going to have this like whole week and we're going to have all these photos. And at 30, even though I had all the reasons to be motivated, I didn't feel motivated, right? I knew what I had to do. I'm going to cut my calories and create the deficit and do more cardio and burn more calories. And I'm going to get shredded. And I, went to the gym, didn't do much. And in the tux, I looked okay, right? But I didn't have it anymore. And so I'm sitting in this hot tub on the north shore of Oahu, like looking out at the ocean. and being like, what the heck? Like, I'm 30 years old. Like, am I old now? So your dad's passing away when you were 30. This is the same year. It's got, like we're the same age. And I was like, dude, am I old now? Like, what is going on? Why can't I do this? Like, why doesn't it feel good to train? And I would say there's two things that were inputs before I sat in that hot tub. And one was I watched the Chris Bell documentary maybe a year or two earlier, Bigger, Faster, Stronger.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like, oh, well, all these guys that are crushing it are, they're cheaters, right? They're taking steroids. And, based on my dad's health journey, I wanted to be actually about health, not like selling my health to get some fitness. So that was definitely an influence, is having seen that. And then,
Yeah. Chris is great, by the way. I was just talking to Chris Bell. He's been on the podcast, but I love that film and his journey. And they're making a new film. They've been making a film for years, and it's going to be, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it, so I won't, but it's going to be really cool and revisit some things. And yeah, it's been a long journey for him, and he's gone animal based and all this stuff. So
yeah. Well, I went up to Sacramento to do his podcast, and then
okay.
like his producer wasn't there that day. So Chris and I ended up on his brother's podcast with Ensema. And,
That's awesome.
had a great, those guys are awesome, dude. And like super training, but like Chris has really leaned into like, oh, it's TRT, right? So back in the day, that his documentary was already this influence for me. And that was right around when you first started seeing these like, describe all my symptoms. And then it's the Is It Low T commercial. And so I'm sitting in the hot tub thinking like, dude, am I just old now? Like I only did that because I was young, and now I'm just going to be on the same like low testosterone path that my dad was on.
Well, that's the standard narrative. Sorry to cut in, but that's what I thought too. It's like I turned 30 and I just bought the mainstream narrative that that's how it is. Is you turn 30, your metabolism slows down,
Yeah.
you become kind of fat and sick, and you just start medications and you just start this slow path. And I mean, yeah, my version people should know is I completely turned it around and look way better and feel way better than when I was 30, and I'm 40 now. But yeah, keep going.
Yeah. So it was kind of those two influences being like, well, is it low T? And when you realize what the steroid guys do, is they're just injecting testosterone. Or maybe, if you got the budget, they're also injecting growth hormone. Like Liver King was spending $500 a day on growth hormone, right? That's crazy. And so at the time, I was thinking like, well, instead of trying to win the Hunger Games, right? That's what I call it. We're trying to eat less, we're trying to move more. It's the Hunger Games. I just use my willpower to eat less and move more, and I keep going and I keep going. Is why don't we play a new game where it's all about naturally optimizing my hormones, right? And so if these other guys are just injecting testosterone or injecting growth hormone, what are the things that I need to do to get my body to produce those hormones? And so I totally flipped around like the whole paradigm, you call it the map, the mental model, whatever, of what I was doing. And the thing is, all of Eat Less, Move More, Hunger Games is based on scarcity, right? I got to eat less and less. I got to move more and more. When I hit the plateau, I got to eat even less and move even more. And instead, the hormone game, when I started researching, like, okay, what am I going to do to increase my growth hormone? What am I going to do to increase my testosterone? And then set up every single regular day. Because at the time, I really felt like I was just stuck in this rut. But even in a rut, you got 24 hours in a day, and there's things that you're doing, right? It's a routine. That rut is a routine.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do for myself and for what I do with my clients is I bump them out of that rut into something else that's also a rut, right? It's a routine, but we rebrand this one as we find the groove. And so from 30 to 40, I've literally spent a decade iterating on the hormone game, right? And so for men, I call it the high testosterone lifestyle. For women, we can just call it the hormone game. But it's the simple daily things that you do in that day for every regular. Now, as a dad, I have irregular days, right? There's days where it's like, oh, wow, that day went off the rails. But all of the regular days, we do these regular things, right? We stack this routine that, right from when I wake up. As a man, we should wake up with a surge of testosterone, and that you know it's there because we have this thing called morning wood, right? We have
Mhm.
this surge of cortisol that gets us out of bed. But unfortunately, most people, that cortisol, that stress hormone that's great to get you out of bed, it's a nice little bump first thing in the morning. Most people double, triple, quadruple dip their morning cortisol, right? To where now they're way overstressed the rest of the day, and that leads them down a bad path. So, right first thing in the morning, everything I did the day before, I've got testosterone and just one pump, one shot of cortisol. And then we got to do the things that like then take the tryptophan that we had in our diet. Our diet that is abundant, that is basically all you can eat. And now I need to turn that tryptophan into serotonin. It's your awake, alert, happy, confident, feel good about yourself hormone. I got to go through the day and figure out ways to get these little bumps of growth hormone that the Liver King pays $500 a day for. And so there's a few ways to get more growth hormone in your life. And then at the end of the day, I need that serotonin to decay and become melatonin, right? So it's we eat tryptophan, that's abundant. We get abundant serotonin during the day. That abundant serotonin, we don't need it in the evening anymore. We don't want to be tired and wired at the end of the day. So we need that serotonin to decay and become melatonin. And then we get that great bath of melatonin going through our bloodstream so that when we sleep, every time we complete a sleep cycle, we get another dump of growth hormone. And so it only counts for completed sleep cycles. But if we get the best sleep, then we wake up in the morning with high testosterone and one shot of cortisol again. And then we go get the serotonin again. And so every step of your day, when we find the groove, just makes this day easier, but then it makes the next day easier and the next day easier. And that's really the thing is like every biological system is operating in these feedback loops, right? The more that you show your body that times are abundant, times are great, is the more you're going to get that feedback loop that gets more of that result. And I really say there's two modes, right? And the thing is, the guy that's 300 pounds eating at Taco Bell right now and the person on the diet are both in this scarcity mode, where to their bodies, it's like they're trying to survive a long, cold, dark winter, right? Why are you always hungry? Why is it that when you drive down the highway, all you see are the fast food restaurants and you're hungry to go to this one and that one and the next one? And you're hungry every hour or every 2 hours, right? The same way that on a diet, all you're thinking about is food, right? Like, I think you and I, sapien style, we eat the most nourishing, best food on the planet. We eat it abundantly. We're not tracking calories, counting macros. We're not weighing anything. We're not uh, what do you put it in your MyFitnessPal app? We don't do any of that. And somehow you and I, all natural. Well, I can speak for myself. Brian, you're all natural, right?
I'm absolutely all natural. Yes.
Absolutely all natural.
Absolutely.
Absolutely all natural. Um, and so all natural, 40-year-old men, everything is abundant. Nothing feels hard. And you get these results because you're not doing it for the energy balance. You realize there's a bigger game out there called energy metabolism, right? And so uh, I
Great.
don't know
Let me
how to
jump
jump
in.
to this.
No,
Go ahead.
yeah, no, no. This is great because I got. So yeah, you went from the scarcity mindset to the abundance mindset. Scarcity. This is what everyone tries to do in the mainstream. It's the eat less, move more. You call the Hunger Games. That's perfect. I'm going to use that now. It's the scarcity mindset, and it like can work. Technically, it can work for a little bit, but it work doesn't mean you have optimal hormones. Doesn't mean you have optimal health. It doesn't mean you're going to have good longevity. Doesn't mean you're not going to be getting cancer or disease along this path. It just means that it works in the short term for the moment. And yes, you can lose weight eating Twinkies, right? There's that professor that lost weight eating Twinkies and junk food at a gas station. Of
Yeah,
course, that's so stupid. That means nothing to me. Of course, if you're just eating 1,100 calories of Twinkies, temporarily you can lose weight. That means absolutely nothing. So, this is so huge for people to understand. And I'm glad you're laying it out just in such practical terms. And we're going to get even more practical for people so they can really just build their day around all these techniques. Is that these people are just so obsessed with calories and they don't realize that health is about hormones and metabolism. It's like how do you lose weight? How do you lose fat? And how do you optimize your immune system and optimize yourself for longevity and all this stuff? It's about hormones and metabolism. That's it. That's what regulates this energy balance. That's how you can eat in abundance and still lose fat. But okay, back to you.
Yeah, well, and I mean, here's the thing: is I could talk about this for hours, right? But it's the practicality of like, and for a lot of people that come to us, like, if I'm working with doctors, dentists, real estate agents, they're so busy in their real lives doing the stuff they need to do, is they just need the most simplified, simple approach to making this all happen. But yeah, like you said, it's not energy balance. And let me give you an example. So some people in your audience might know I've shared this other places before, but right before the pandemic, I was thinking of moving my family back into Los Angeles, which thank goodness we didn't do it. Right now
Yeah.
we live like 2 hours from LA, out in the desert. But I was hired at Equinox as a master personal trainer. So for anyone that knows Equinox, I think there's one in Dallas and one in Austin, maybe one in Austin. But it's mainly big cities, wealthy suburbs, and it's the fanciest gyms you can imagine, right? Where it's like you walk in and it's towels. Well, first you valet your Rolls Royce, and then you walk in and it's like towels and Kiehl's lotion, and like it's just a super nice gyms. And so they hired me as a master personal trainer there. And within 5 months, I was the number one trainer in the company out of 3,000 trainers, right? More than 3,000 trainers.
Wow.
And going to number one was really simple, right? Like at the time I was 36 years old, 4 years ago, like just pre-pandemic. And I would go into the locker room for work, pick a locker right by the door. And then at some time of the day after my workout, I would walk through the locker room, say, well, first I got to change clothes, right? I take off my sweaty clothes, wrap a towel around myself, walk through the locker room, just say hi to everyone and sit in the sauna. And then people are like, wait. This doesn't make sense. How do you look like that? Like you have an 8-pack. You look like you're maybe, I would have guessed you were 26, but you're 36. And you're not on PEDs or powders or anything. Like you don't take anything. Like I don't take anything. Like, well, how do you do that? And we sit down and we talk. I lay out for them. This is the hormone game. This is how we do it. For a man, this is how we get high testosterone. This is how we get high growth hormone. And so I skyrocketed. Like guys would leave the sauna and go out and try to like buy the $10,000 training package to work with me. Like, Chris, this sounds great. I need to work with you. And honestly, at the time, to be the number one trainer, I didn't have like any spare hours of the day to like even work with new clients. But I would have to go to these weekly meetings, right, for the trainers, the training staff. And so by far and away, I'm the most fit trainer at the gym. And there's guys there that have, the master's degree from fancy university in Southern California. And, it's in kinesiology, and they have no clients, right? None whatsoever, because they don't look the part. And then all they can tell you is the mainstream approach. But what was funny is I would go to these weekly meetings and Equinox would cater it. And so I would come straight from my workout. And I don't want to freak out the ancestral health people here because I'm one of you, right? Just trust that I'm one of you.
Yeah.
But I would come straight from my workout. Like it's Friday, maybe I'm just doing like 15-minute arm workout or something. And I go right to this meeting. I got my cutoff shirt on and my veins are already popped out. And Equinox caters it. And there's all these overweight trainers kind of huddled in the corner, like sheepishly eating salads. And I walk in there with like my veins pumping. And my favorite manager, right? My favorite coworker has these like homemade gluten-free sugar cookies. And I walk in and house all the sugar cookies. And now my veins are going nuts. And they're just like, it's not fair, Chris. How can you eat like that? Like you just have great genetics. Like my genetics are from my dad that was low testosterone and died of cancer when I was 18. Right? If you look at my mom, you wouldn't be like, oh wow, he's got the genetics. If, like it's not genetics. It's that we're always creating the hormonal environment. And what I mean when I say these guys over here eating salad, they're talking about energy balance, calories in, calories out, calorie deficit, blah, blah, blah. I'm talking about not energy balance, but energy metabolism. And so if I walk in and eat all those cookies, I'm already incredibly insulin sensitive. I've upregulated the GLUT4 transporters. So these are they're actually like we want to say that like insulin is the key that gets into the cell. Well, the GLUT4 transporter is really the door. And I would even say once the GLUT4 transporter is out there, the door is open. But insulin comes, and insulin is like the bouncer to the club. They bring out the velvet ropes, and they're the bouncer, and they're going to let you in. But we have to have a door there first. So we create this environment where we have the insulin sensitivity, where the GLUT4 transporters have been upregulated. Then we got the insulin out there to say, hey, come on through the door, right? Come on into the club. And then we get the protein coming in, and then ultimately the club fills up, right? And the club fills up is the carbs and the protein are in the muscle cells. And then we send the signal, the fire marshal's not going to let us have unlimited amounts of people in there. So eventually we say, hey, that's enough. We got to close the velvet rope. We're done for the night. And that's really your body triggering the leptin, your lean body hormone that says, we're not hungry anymore. So I house a plate of cookies, it goes straight to my biceps, right? The other trainers are sheepishly eating salad, and all the salad dressing goes straight to their hips, right?
Yeah.
We're playing like, I want to say I'm over here playing 4-dimensional chess or 3-dimensional chess or whatever.
We kind of are. We've
Yeah.
got to brag a little bit. We kind of are.
Yeah. Well, and so my life is so much like, would you rather be chubby eating salad or shredded and eating the cookies? Right. And when you have when that trainer eats cookies, they think it's going right to their hips as well. We have to just create the environment where it goes where we need it, where we have in that moment the insulin sensitivity, right? So instead of it floating through your bloodstream where, oh, this is high blood sugar, it's corrosive, it's, sanding down your capillaries, right? And leading to peripheral neuropathy in diabetics. Instead of the sugar being there, the sugar needs to be safely stored in your muscles. And so it's just setting yourself up throughout the day where you get the hormones to do the right thing. And even now, like I'll tell clients in an onboarding call, we think we do exercise for maybe two reasons, right? Like I'm going to exercise to burn calories. I never exercise to burn calories. We think we're going to exercise to build strength or bigger muscles. I don't exercise to build strength or bigger muscles. And right now there's some guy on steroids being like, whoa, that's obvious, Chris. Do you even lift? Right? Like that some haters gonna be like, look at this guy, 6'3", 210, shredded. He should be at least 240. Like, I don't care, bro. Tell me I look like a swimmer or a hockey player or something. Like,
well, to 99% of America, you look amazing. So keep going.
Right. And so, Brian, where was I right there? I just take myself off. I get so excited about the next thing.
About like, I don't know, hormone optimization. You're putting.
Of course. And so the thing is, I don't exercise to burn calories. Never.
Oh yeah.
And let's talk about the guy that does that, because I've seen him at Equinox. He's there 6 a.m. every day. He's super alpha, comes to the gym 6 a.m., all willpower for an hour, crushing it on the elliptical. That guy leaves the gym. He used a superhuman amount of willpower to stay on the cardio for an hour, right? He wanted to get off it after a minute, stayed on it. But he leaves the gym tired from that workout, stressed from the cortisol that it took to get through that workout. And because he burned all that sugar, he's triggered tons of ghrelin, tons of hunger hormone. And then so later in the day, he ends up overeating. And then he thinks, I've got to get back to the gym at 6 a.m. to work out again because I overate. And so you stay stuck in this vicious cycle, right? And the other side of that is, oh, well, you know what? We should go to the gym. We should work out to get stronger and to build muscle. And you know that in the gym, you can't do that. We only get stronger and build muscle through recovery. So what I actually want to do in the gym is create insulin sensitivity. Like I said, upregulate the GLUT4 transporters. And I actually want to send the signal that we should grow bigger or stronger. But that's just being in the gym for 15 minutes and getting a dump of growth hormone, right? So once your workout crosses from 15 minutes, you've basically got most of the good stuff. And then once we get past about 40, 45 minutes, is now we're just dumping cortisol to get through. And so, yeah, I'm sure there's a YouTube channel that will break down for you the optimal power lifter bodybuilder workout is 90 minutes and it's this many sets and this many reps. But it's pretty obvious that you're going to get 90% of the optimal workout in 15 to 40 minutes. Right. And so if I'm not working out to get stronger, I'm working out for insulin sensitivity, for growth hormone, and then to maximize the recovery because no one actually gets stronger in the gym anyway. Right. You might demonstrate that you're stronger, but strength is actually from recovery.
It's from, yeah. You build the muscle in your sleep. It's amazing.
And so the high testosterone lifestyle or winning the hormone game has to be so much about like, how do I get better sleep? Right? Sleep is your opportunity to basically double or triple the amount of growth hormone that you have. And when you put all of these things together, it's why I am 40. Maybe in my face, I've got maybe there's like a little wrinkle here, a little crow's foot. Like, so maybe I look 30, but I perform better than most 20-year-olds. Right? I actually just had a client this morning. He's like, yeah, Chris, you really do all this stuff you talk about. I'm like, yeah, and it's worth it. Because if you're 40 years old and you can actually physically outperform athletic 20-year-olds, and I'm working out only 15 to 40 minutes a day, like there's no bigger ROI. And that's where for my clients, like a lot of times there are people that you would think have it all, but they don't have this fitness component dialed. And some of them are, maybe they're just new to the ancestral health space. And it's like, okay, we got to put down the Doritos and get off the couch. But I have a lot of other clients on the other side of the spectrum where they come to me and they're like, Chris, I've listened to all the podcasts, and they'll name like big fitness podcasts. I've listened to all these. I've watched all the YouTube videos from this guy. I've read all the right books. I could literally teach a college course in fitness at the local school. Like I have one guy who's actually a college professor at a major Midwestern university, go Buckeyes. And he's like, dude, Chris, I could teach a course in this stuff. It's way outside his specialty, but he's like, I've learned it all, but doesn't have the results. And so that's what I really do for my clients. I say, let's install all of these things, and then we have to do it bespoke, right? Like the things that are going to fit into your life as an influencer, entrepreneur, podcaster are not the things that are going to fit into the life of the ICU nurse or an entrepreneur in another space. So I have to fit everything, all the important blocks into their lives and make it work for their lives. And then it's almost like you just turn on this hormone machine, right? Where you get the testosterone, you get the insulin sensitivity, you get the growth hormone. And then it
This
just
is
spins
awesome.
up and spins up. But yeah, it's and Brian, like just from your life, it's like it's zero struggle, right? Like
No, it takes me no willpower to do this stuff now. Okay. I'm so into this efficiency thing. You talked about the ROI. That's all I'm into. I have this engineering background, and it's like, how effective and efficient can I be? I don't have endless willpower. I'm not some special superhero guy that is amazing at being disciplined and doing all. No, I'm just as everyone wants shortcuts, right? Everyone wants shortcuts, but my shortcuts work. Your shortcuts, you figured out how to work out in 20 minutes and get all the results, because you don't want to work out for more than 20 minutes, or you're just going to stress yourself out and, yeah, like you say, get more cortisol release. So everyone should be into this. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter. This is how I live my life. It doesn't take me any willpower anymore to pass by all those fast food restaurants. I have zero interest. I don't even go to regular restaurants anymore. But it's not like because I have good willpower, it's because I don't want it anymore. Or I can cook better for myself. I eat way better at home. Everything is 10 times better and way more what I want, way more meat, whatever. So yeah, I love that you're helping people kind of short circuit their own health, or like you don't have to use the willpower. You can just, it's the hacks, right? I don't know. It's ancestral hacking too. I hate biohacking kind of, It's like I don't want more gadgets. I want to live more like a human. And the closer you are to living like a human, the easier it is, the better your body responds, and the more results you get.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. Like, so I think a lot of us we've recently seen like that newly colorized footage of like 1966 PE class in America,
Yep.
and you look at this footage from the 60s, and literally every high school boy in PE class is like this close to being Brad Pitt Fight Club,
Yeah.
right? Like Brad Pitt Fight Club is 30 years later, and it's like this all-time like iconic uh, physique for all-time cinema. But if you go 30 years before Brad Pitt Fight Club, it's like almost every high school boy in America is that close, right? By the time you go from 18 to 22, you'd have the Brad Pitt Fight Club physique. And so I don't think of it in terms of shortcuts or hacks, right? Like I'm just setting up the daily routine. The way I think about it is the direct path to true health. And I think similarly to you is it's unwinding all of the things that we've gone off track with since maybe the
Yes.
1960s, right?
Well,
If
it's
I can,
amazing. I hate calling it a hack, but to other people, it seems like a hack. But all it is the closer truth. It's like this is what you're supposed to do.
oh, absolutely. And so I talk about it in terms of true health and fitness or deep health. And the thing is, by cracking this code, and like you said at the start, like we're of a same mind on this thing, right? Like of all the influencers in the ancestral space, I'm like, yeah, Brian, that's the guy that gets it, right? Um, and so what we unlock when we do this, when we unwind all of and I got to tell your audience, it is not the DNA. Your DNA is fantastic. Your parents were in the 1966 PE class, or their parents were in the 1960s. Like your DNA has not changed, but it is your DLE, your diet, your lifestyle, and your environment. And so when we revert diet and lifestyle and environment back just a few decades, or maybe like it doesn't have to be paleo, like the 1960s weren't Paleolithic,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, the closer we get to the Paleolithic, going back just a few decades, we're like, oh, people were healthy. Go back a little bit further, people were probably even healthier. And so, in the 80s, Dr. Gerald Reaven is professor emeritus from Stanford, saw all of this coming, right? And he called it Syndrome X. And today we call it metabolic syndrome. And so it's visceral fat, right? The fat that my dad had. So not just the under the skin fat, but the behind the abdominal wall fat. And where that fat comes from is you've got this corrosive sugar pumping through your bloods and through your bloods. You've got this corrosive sugar in circulation pumping through your bloodstream. And it's like sandpaper. And then because you're becoming insulin insensitive, your kidneys aren't flushing out the salt like they should. So now you're holding on to more water. So now the sugar that's in your blood is under more pressure. And so now it's not just sandpaper on your capillaries, on the inside of your veins and your arteries, but now it's like sandblasted, right? And so to reverse all these things, the visceral fat, that's the first thing he talks about. We got to get rid of the visceral fat. Glucose control, but it's the same thing, right? The lack of glucose control, the high blood sugar is causing the visceral fat because when you have high blood sugar, that's a problem now. Your body wants to shuttle that sugar to the liver and turn it into fat. And now that fat is leaking out of your liver and crowding out your heart and your organs. And so all these things that Dr. Reaven laid out as syndrome X, or what we call metabolic syndrome, are just an insensitivity to insulin. And so when we unwind this, he would say there's visceral fat, there's poor glucose control, so high fasting glucose or a high A1C score. There's high blood pressure. Again, same thing. We don't take blood pressure meds to reverse your high blood pressure. We create insulin sensitivity. We want to get rid of visceral fat. We got to create insulin sensitivity. And then your triglyceride to HDL ratio. This is literally the scoreboard of life and death. So you go to your doctor and he looks at your blood work and he's like, oh, we got to put you on a statin. right? Which is just going to haphazardly interrupt a major metabolic pathway. And what we should be looking at is your triglyceride to HDL ratio. It's not total cholesterol. It's not LDL cholesterol. And you can get into the weeds of like the VLDL and the particle size and all this stuff. But if you just look at a regular lipid panel and you say triglycerides is the score for death, we want that score as low as possible, preferably around 40. And HDL is the score for life. We want that score as high as possible, preferably around 80. That TG-HDL ratio predicts insulin sensitivity. And so to unwind all this, we have to go to the opposite direction. If this is syndrome X, if this is metabolic syndrome, then metabolic excellence is just the opposite, where we have ideal blood pressure, 110/70, where our fasting glucose or our A1C is on point, where we have zero visceral fat, and where our TG-HDL ratio is as good as it can be. And when you do that, your health can't get any better. And so this is why I can, let's air quotes here, I can afford to eat ice cream every day, or I can afford to have the platter of cookies. Because even at 40 with shreds where I'm always, I'm either a cut 6-pack or crossing into an 8-pack. I've got zero visceral fat, 110/70 blood pressure. A1C is on point. Blood pressure, the waist measurement is down. The shoulders are like
Triglyceride to HDL ratio. What's your...
So mine is typically TG is down around 40 and HDL is up around 80.
So you got the 2-to-1. That's killer.
The 2-to-1. And so most people would be like, I'd be pretty happy if I got you to 1-to-1, right? Where if your trigs were around 60 and your HDL was around 60, like that's now we're in a tie game of the scoreboard for life and death. But the medical system is so twisted that we don't even flag low HDL until it's down at 40. Which is
actually, I think I did it backwards. One half. You want it less than 1 because if it's triglycerides 40, HDL 80, that's 1/2. So you're better than 1-to-1.
Yeah, exactly. 0.5.
Better than 1-to-1, which I am too. Yes, I'm better than 1-to-1. I'm around what you're talking about.
Right. Well, you'd have to be if you were living the sapien style.
Oh yeah. Well, a lot of people are like the opposite. They're like 3-to-1. They have their triglycerides are 100 and their HDL is like 50. So yeah, that's an example of the opposite, what you don't want to be.
So that 2-to-1 ratio, triglycerides
high, bad,
80,
100
HDL.
Call it, yeah.
That ratio is really like now we're starting to fall off the cliff. But think about, so that 2-to-1 ratio is falling off the cliff. But look at this, is on your blood work, your trigs are not getting flagged until they go over 150. Your HDL is not getting flagged until it goes to under 41 or under 40.
Yeah. Yeah. Right? Some people are like 3-to-1, 4-to-1 That's crazy.
So you can be in the normal range and your doctor's not saying anything except, oh, well, I don't see the TG-HDL ratio. It doesn't print it up. It doesn't tell me out of line or whatever. So your trigs are 149. Your HDL is 41. You've got this horrific ratio. And the doctor is just looking at your total cholesterol and either saying you're fine or you need a statin. Right? It's absolutely bonkers. And Gerald Reaven, PhD from Stanford, laid this out for us in the 80s. Here's what's bad. And if we get to the opposite, that's what's good. Hypertension is bad. 110/70 is great. And so what I do with my clients is I help them to where they unlock or capture or whatever. And really with my clients, it's like we're going on the hero's journey together, right? I'm the mentor, they're the hero, and we go capture what they want to do, right? The physique, the fitness, the health. And so along the way, we get these like 7 measures of deep health where we get down to 0 visceral fat, where our blood pressure can't get, like, if your blood pressure is 110/70, you don't want it any lower. Right? Yeah. If your visceral fat
is lower, you might be dead. You might die.
Well, you're gonna start fainting, right? Like,
yeah.
So, but that's the thing is, if you imagine men our age, right, and older, is 99.999% of them have health problems. right? Of that, 85% are in the danger zone, right? That TG-HDL ratio is terrible. They're piling up visceral fat. Their blood pressure is too high. They're hypertensive. Their doctors want to put them on blood pressure. Like everything is terrible. And then that's the danger zone. Just below that, the other 15% are in like the caution zone. And so the people in the caution zone are trying to stay in the caution zone, and the people in the danger zone are getting medicated. And those are the people that think I've got to, eat the salad to get into the yellow zone, the caution zone. And you and I are down here. We call it the blue zone or the green zone. We're in the super friendly supreme health zone, where if I want, I can eat ice cream or cookies, and it's not going to spike me up into the caution zone, right? I can stay here with the deepest possible health and be an enjoyer of that health.
Because it's going to the right place. I want to point this out too, because Lane Norton was on the show. I actually like Lane Norton now. We used to be at odds a little bit, but I see where he's coming from because he works for the bodybuilder types. And he's like, yes, you can eat ice cream or the Pop-Tart stuff, but it makes sense because it's like, yes, you've done all this work, you've worked out, you have big muscles, you have good hormones. And yes, you can do that. Like I eat ice cream too, because I won. I got shredded. That's what you're saying to people. It's like once you're healthy, once you've got there, eat some ice cream. Especially some good ice cream if you can make it yourself with some good raw milk or something and some
Yeah,
maple syrup or whatever. But you it's not going to affect you the same way that a obese diabetic person eats ice cream.
yeah. I should go back and listen to your Lane episode. I've had a few run-ins with him where I'm like, I really don't like some of the stuff he has to say. Like it's very
Well,
like
no,
it's very
I don't agree
energy
with
guy.
all the stuff he has to say, actually, because he's a little more in this just like calorie balance mindset. And he gets a lot of things, but I don't think he's just right spot on about the hormone metabolism, that stuff. He just doesn't talk about that enough. It's more like, well, you just need to be in a calorie deficit, and as long as you're eating enough protein, blah blah.
Yeah. So here, this is what I think is there are some people that run into that almost like they're searching around in the dark and they bump into some right answers and they incorporate those. Right. So there are things if I am the leaner bodybuilder guy, but anytime you start talking calories, is you're just setting yourself up to make it hard. Right. And it's not that I'm trying to eat cookies and ice cream, but if I don't have a significant amount of body fat, or pardon me, of dietary fat, like my testosterone would actually crash from where it is because I'm too lean. And
Yeah.
so this is what I do with my clients, and I try to paint this picture and describe it for them is that initially, let's say you are, Brian, you're 50 pounds overweight, but I want to visualize yourself. The analogy is you're this beautiful, like French country chateau, this like giant estate in the French countryside. Gorgeous. But we have this giant pile of firewood built up where we can't even see the chateau, right? That's being overweight. That's being
Yep.
obese. And so what we need to do is take that giant pile of firewood and take it into the house every day and burn it for heat. At the same time, because you are this expansive chateau, is every day we're going to still deliver lumber, 2x4s, for the ongoing renovations. So we're going to heat the home with firewood, but we're not going to burn the 2x4s. And then the other thing is to keep up your estate, we got to put gas in the lawnmower. And so to keep it from getting all overgrown, we put gas in the lawnmower, we cut the grass. And so the three parts of this are the firewood is fat. We want to burn fat to heat up our bodies. As a human, you're going to stay 98.6 degrees or 37 Celsius. We also want to put gas into that lawnmower so we can cut the grass and keep things looking beautiful. And so that gas is only a limited amount that fits into the gas tank. We don't want to spill gas all over the grass, all over the house, all over everything. We put just enough gas to fill up the gas tank so we can cut the grass.
So
And
that's
that is
carbs.
That's carbs,
Yeah.
right? So carbs keep things looking good, feeling good, but we only put enough gas in that gas tank. And then so the 2x4s are your protein. And the deeper you go into understanding bioenergetics and into understanding energy metabolism, is we have our phosphagen system, we got fast glycolysis, slow glycolysis, we got fat oxidation, the Cori cycle's working in the background, the Krebs cycle is cranking along. And what you realize, and this is our friend Dr. Ted, right, is there is the protein that's coming in, those 2x4s, the lumber that we're renovating the home with, is almost never burned for energy, right? I've got all of this wood, this firewood in front. Why would I burn my 2x4s? And so when Lane says something like, oh, well, we just need to have this much protein. Good idea. That's one of the things that I'm going to tell my clients is we've got to have this much protein for this ongoing renovation, right? And so the whole idea is we're going to spend down all that firewood that's out front, and we're going to end up with this beautifully manicured chateau. That's your dream body. And then every day we bring in enough lumber to keep the renovations going. We bring in just enough firewood to heat the house, and we bring in just enough gasoline to cut the grass, right? And so it sounds like we're all getting back to energy balance, right? But it's that we're using the right things to do the right things. And for some people, they're not even in the hormonal state to do any of that, right? Everything we just talked about depended on some work happening. I only bring in the lumber because there are renovations happening. You know, we're swinging hammers and we're putting up 2x4s and we're putting up new drywall. Like there's work happening. And so a lot of people, when they come to me, they're in kind of a state of disrepair. So there's lumber there, but there's no crew to do the construction and the renovation. There's all the firewood there, but you know, we're only running the furnace in one room in the house, right? And the grass is all overgrown and there's gasoline everywhere, right? So we have to clean all these things up. So it's not energy balance. It's like getting the right things happening. If you're not running the lawnmower, right? Like
Yeah.
the whole thing has to happen together.
I love it. The hormones and metabolism part, it's in disarray. It's like having either no crew or people like incompetent workers or people who don't even speak the right language and are running around in circles. That's like your hormones that most people are in disarray.
Yeah. And so I just had this new client come to me. The dude crushes it in life, right? Absolutely. Like, the dude's absolutely crushing it. Makes a ton of money, has all these things that everyone wants, and kind of described to me his morning routine. I'm like, oh, dude, you're one of these guys quadruple dipping the cortisol. And he's not that out of shape. He's like 5'9", 190, right? Where you're close, right? 5'9", 190 is like you're 20, 25 pounds maybe around a great shredded physique. But the biggest struggle for him was he just described low testosterone, where it's like, I lack libido. I lack sex drive. I don't have the energy to do these things. I feel like I'm running on fumes. And the thing is, when you get into energy metabolism, is what do we actually make testosterone from? We make it from saturated fat, from fat. And so if you're bulking up, right, or maybe you're just maintaining being 25 pounds overweight, is the enzyme that actually cuts up body fat and breaks it down so that we can make testosterone is called hormone sensitive lipase. And it's actually the long form that works in your testicles. And so if you're not cutting up body fat to use it as the building blocks for testosterone, then you're not getting any testosterone. And so most people, their bodies are busy trying to burn through the sugar they just ate, or they're busy trying to turn that sugar into more fat. So if we're creating more fat, if we're doing lipogenesis, if we're making more fat, then we're not burning fat. And so one of the keys to being a high testosterone male, and also women, again, disclaimer, everything I'm talking about will work for you. We just got to swap out a few words, and we're not going to talk so heavily on testosterone. But men, you're not making testosterone unless you are lean. And so back to that chateau, we want to burn all the fat down, but then we got to keep burning fat every day. This like daily delivery. And so for me, there's not much body fat left. So even just to support my testosterone, I could do it eating bricks of Kerrygold butter, or I could do it eating, like you said, homemade ice cream. But I need the fat for hormone sensitive lipase to cut it down and break it down and turn it into the precursor that we build testosterone from. And so it's so clear that if you are overweight and staying overweight or becoming more like if you're 5'9", 190 with 30 pounds of fat and you stay there, you're not making much testosterone at all. If you're 5'9", 190 and getting fatter and fatter, you're making even less testosterone. And so the thing is, when we're storing fat, is all your fat cells, right? They're like these like empty Ziploc bags. But when we fill them up with energy, we turn on a factory that makes estrogen, right? Like your fat cells are these little factories to make estrogen. And so we have to starve out those estrogen factories, men. And that means get lean, 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 lean. And then we're going to turn on, because we're breaking down fat, we're going to turn on hormone sensitive lipase to break that fat down and turn it into great stuff like testosterone. And so at every step, every step makes the next step easier. And that's what we do throughout the day. So is it your DNA? No, it's diet, lifestyle, environment. And so there are, like, back to Lane. Well, if we're exercising, if we're doing some form of vigorous exercise that leads us to be stronger, that's moving in the right direction. If we eat a diet with more protein, more 2x4s, and the crew is that's both things, right? Like doing the vigorous exercises, there's a crew there to do the renovations. Dropping off the protein, dropping off the 2x4s means they have materials to work with. So if you just run into that one thing, and this is why this other model seems seductive, right? Is you can do a few of the right things and you get some results. But ultimately, when you try to do those things to get supremely healthy, like we said, do the opposite of Dr. Reven's metabolic syndrome, right? To go towards metabolic excellence, is all the bodybuilders will tell you that they crash their testosterone trying to get stage lean. At least all the natural bodybuilders would tell you that,
I
right?
saw a guy post, influencer here in Austin that's really popular, did a physique competition, and he's one of the few people that admitted how bad his hormones were, and he posted his results, and he was off the charts low on testosterone and all these other things.
Yeah. And so there is a level where you're taking it substantially more lean than I am, which is insane, right? Like you go from like, oh, when that dude flexes, he's got an 8-pack, right? When he's just standing there, he's definitely got a 6-pack. And if you take that from, I would call supreme beach lean to like actual stage lean, is you're crashing down because you're cutting out all of the fat that you're making testosterone from. And so the whole point is you have to spend all that extra fat, the 30 pounds, 40 pounds, 50 pounds. Some clients I work with, it's like we start with 130 extra pounds of fat. So we have to spend that, and then we get to put you on this like daily checking account of fat, right? If I burn a half pound of fat a day, I have to eat a half pound of fat because there's not an extra half pound of fat just laying around. And so it's these tweaks we have to make that where we're coaching to get you through all the way there. But that's, go ahead, Brian.
No. I'm glad you're giving away a lot of these really practical tips, and the coaching stuff is funny because I posted on my story recently that I wanted to do some coaching because I did with Dr. Gary years ago. People know I was working with Dr. Gary and doing Sapien stuff, and I worked with him in the office and was like coaching people. It's really interesting to learn how it works and do the habit change and see how you could actually make change in people's lives and not just be the PhD looking at the papers, right? You got to see it in
Yeah.
action, because you can know everything and not do it. And then I realized I don't have time to do it, and you're much better at me. So I want to just let people know that I'm just handing it off to you. I'm just going to push people to you. So that's my new thing is I'm not going to try to do the health coaching. I got to finish this film and I work too much already. So yeah, just DM Chris. And it's not the end of the episode yet. We're still going to get into some other stuff, but I just wanted people to know that I would say just DM Kruger body. Find him on Instagram. We'll link to him, and he'll take care of it. I'm not going to do it, and he's got your back. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, Brian, to me that makes perfect sense because, dude, I love the content you put out, right? And I think you driving the conversation forward in terms of ancestral health is so important for everyone, right? And it's really, it's you and a couple other people. I would go like shout out Rob Wolf, right? There's a couple people that are really driving the conversation forward for ancestral health, and that's something that we work together on Game Changers Debunked, and I truthfully enjoy that. I can talk about this stuff all day, and maybe we'll link up on another project. But yeah, really, my passion first and foremost, and it's so fun for me to make these transformations with my clients, right? That's really what I look for in a client. Like I said back at Equinox, before I could just like invite someone to my training, is I had to be like, okay, I've only got this many hours in the day. I've got to really want to work with you. And so the biggest thing for someone to consider is it the right time in your life to really focus on your health? Right. And to you and me, it sounds like, well, obviously the answer is yes, no matter what.
yeah,
Yeah. Like obviously the answer is yes. But there are some people where, it's like we got to take care of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Right. So if you spend all day just listening to health podcasts, but you're not making any money, you're not supporting yourself, you're not taking care of business, you're not advancing in your career, then more health podcasts might not help you right now, or more one-on-one health coaching for me might not be the thing for you right now. But if you're already doing well there, right, and then we got to ascend Maslow's hierarchy. So you've got food and shelter and like times are okay, and really that's what we want to see is that there's abundance in all these areas of life. And then in your personal relationships. So this could be your wife and kids. It could be, whatever the closest relationships are to you, is we want to see that those relationships are good, especially if it's wife and kids, right? Like if your kids are like, hey, dad, I hate you. I want to live with grandma, and your wife wants a divorce, then maybe there's an immediate, like an acute concern there, right? But for everyone else, it's the third relationship. And when I was younger, I didn't think of health and fitness as this relationship. I didn't have the maturity to see it that way, right? So in my 20s, when I was, I'm going to win the Hunger Games. You'll see. I've got all the willpower. I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to earn these biceps, right? Like that was always my mentality of like, health and fitness belongs to me. I earned it. And then in my 30s and now in my 40s, the realization has been that like my health and fitness is just a reflection of my relationship with myself, right? When I step out of the shower and it's just me and the man in the mirror, the question is, do I like that person? Do I love that person? Do I care for that person? Would I follow him? Do I respect him? Is that a person that is worthy, that deserves status? And so for so many of my clients, because the mainstream DLE is so warped, right, is they'll come to me, they're doing great. Like they can make money, their careers are going awesome, things are good. Wife loves them or husband loves her, kids love, like everything is good there. But the relationship that they don't have is the relationship with themselves. And I'm thinking actually now of this woman that came to work with me and, came to work with me in tears, right? Like, and for a woman, it's got to be heartbreaking when you're like, oh, I was young and pretty, and now I'm old, and I'm, like I'm putting on weight, and I don't feel confident, and I don't feel good about myself, and all I want to do is hide away, right? And so I check her. So I have all my clients, and this is where it's like actual some one-on-one accountabilities. Every day, my clients text me their scorecard, right? So she texts me her scorecard, and she's down like 30 pounds in like 26 weeks. And for women, we actually, what we're comparing to is always 4 weeks ago, right? So we're stepping it down, but we're also being mindful of their hormones and their cycle, right? For premenopausal. And so, or for all adult women up to perimenopause. And so now she's like, I'm planning this girls trip. I'm planning spring break. I'm wearing 2-piece bikinis. And it's like just over the moon excited with how she looks and feels. And that's what I'm really talking about is that opportunity for you? Is the biggest lever in your life going to be you looking better and feeling better about yourself? And for most people that have those other two on lock, if those other two are at all in the right place, then it's absolutely the right time. And then so what I move clients from there is if it's the right time in your life, then we got to pick an ideal, right? We need a goal. And so Brian, even back at Equinox, I'd have guys super successful. I'm wearing my Rolex, my Range Rover's parked in the valet, and I know what Chris says works and I just want to work with him. But I'm like, okay, dude, so what's the goal? And the guy I'm thinking of, his name was Joe, is like 6 foot, 260, 270. And he's like, well, if I could just lose like 10 or 15 pounds and have some more energy. And I'm like, Joe, if you lose 10 or 15 pounds, you're still obese, right? We need a bigger goal, right? Is that all you believe you can do? Like why, the highest ideal we can choose should be the limits of our beliefs, right? Like the limits of my belief is I can be 40 and have an 8-pack and have tons of energy and outperform 20-year-olds all over, at almost anything, right? And so he's like, well, yeah, well, I mean, but I'm 46 now. Like, do you really think I could look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club? And this is another thing, Brian, is like Brad Pitt in Fight Club, this iconic cinema physique. He's really a normal weight guy that is kind of lean, right? Like, yeah, 8, 9, maybe like the exact body fat percentage doesn't matter, but it's like all you have to do to look great, to have zero visceral fat, to have great blood pressure, to have great fasting glucose, to have great TG HDL. The only thing we need to achieve isn't a decade in the gym and a 300-pound bench press or anything like that. All we need is muscular shoulders and a narrow waist with no visceral fat, right? That's what, for men, will initially make women attracted to you. That's what will make them look again. And then when they see your face, they're not going to see a fat face that's like a Guess Who character. Like, Brian, does your guy have glasses? Is he wearing a hat? Right? You have to actually have your face. Like you need this jawline and the cheeks and the cheekbones and the chin. Like you need to, the only way to have that face and not be a face like everyone else is to be lean, right? Is to show your bone structure. But that's all men need is to Brad Pitt Fight Club seems so iconic, but it's just be a normal weight adult man who's leaner than average. That's all Brad Pitt Fight Club is. And so guys will come to me and be like, do you think I could ever look like that? I was like, dude, if you can't look like that in 6 months, like, I don't know what the problem is, right? We start winning the hormone game. We start living the high testosterone lifestyle. All you have to be is normal weight. It's not steroids and a decade of bodybuilding like Schwarzenegger, right? Brad Pitt Fight Club is different. He's wild. He's sinewy. He has this kind of like predatory flair to him, right? He actually seems dangerous instead of like puffy and cartoonish. But if that's the ultimate male physique, and we've seen this time and again, like if you give women the option, like, do you want big bodybuilder guy or Brad Pitt Fight Club guy? Women always pick Brad Pitt Fight Club guy.
Yeah.
Right? If it's Tyler Durden Fight Club or Conan the Barbarian, they always pick. And so yeah, there's a few outliers out there. They're like, oh no, I like Schwarzenegger. Everyone else is picking Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
And that's it's not far.
It's not, and yet this message is good because the mainstream has people thinking that anyone who looks like that, like you said, 10 years in the gym, TRT, all these things, like, no, this is a huge lie. That yes, in the modern environment, if you live like everyone else, your DLE, I like that, the diet lifestyle environment is like everyone else, you're going to look like everyone else, and it is going to be super hard to look like that. Once you flip the script and do the right things, it is very attainable. You don't have to have magic DNA or magic willpower.
Well, the thing is, everyone has that. So in terms of like magic DNA, like your DNA is fine. Your DNA got you through everything that's happened throughout human history to this point.
Yeah.
And I was looking at this the other day, and it's like so sad. And um, so I was at my daughter's hockey game, and there was another hockey game going on, and I'm going to change the names or whatever, so it's not the same
Okay. Yeah.
names. But this is not in my it's not in my community, but these are the names, right? Or these are the altered names, but they're similar, right? Because that's part of the story. Is these two hockey teams are playing, and it's 10-year-old boys, and there's a kid on one team who's fatter than all of the other kids, right? And he's number 14, and let's say his last name is Larson, right? And then there's a fat dad and a fat mom wearing their kid's jersey, number 14, Larson, right? And the mom and dad are there. They're supportive. They drove 3 hours to get to this game. They clearly love their boy. And he's got this big red beard, the dad does, and just the guy's 350 pounds or something. And it's not your DNA. If your name is Larson and you have a big red beard, your great 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 grandfather was a Viking, right? Was like some sort of Viking warrior. Like you have the blood of the Viking coursing through your veins. And you can do the same thing with any sort of last, like, oh, Kruger, that's a German last name. At some point, your ancestors were barbarians fighting off the Romans. Or if you have a Latin last name, then at some point your ancestors were Roman centurions fighting off the barbarians, right? Like everyone around is descended from warriors, right? So if you're, and I'm on my mom's side, I'm like half Norwegian, all right? I'm like half Viking, half barbarian. But it's like that blood is in your veins, right? It's the fudge rounds and the DLE that has a big, this guy's 6'2", 350, all fat, right, dude? You're a Viking, and so to see the child growing up in that same DLE, it's not because your dad's fat. It's because your dad's lifestyle and environment and diet are fat, right? And dude, it just hits so hard. And like I said, the little hockey kids get undressed and go walking out, and it's obvious that they love him, right? The Larsons are a loving family, but you have to get people on families on track, right? And I just saw that on one of my Instagram comments is like this guy saying like the biggest thing for me is like being a role model, right? Like how can you be the 350? How can you be the fat dad? You shouldn't be the fat dad. You got to be, and you know that you have no energy. Like just standing watching the hockey games, like all the energy you have, but you're not going to go out and skate with them. You're not going to go play. And it, and so like until I had a daughter, like, when I was 30, like none of this stuff would have affected me. And now it's just like, it hits me so hard when it's like we have dads that can't do it and then kids that don't have dads that can do it. And even for me, like losing my dad at 18, it was really, I came home one day in sixth grade and my parents were like holding each other in bed, like crying. I come through the front door and upstairs, I'm like, what is going on here? And go upstairs and like, it's a bright sunny day outside. It's a great day. And the blinds are closed and the light is kind of gray filtering in. And they're just holding each other and crying. And it's bad news. And so my dad battled cancer, getting all the wrong advice from the medical establishment for 6 years. To just barely miss my high school graduation, right? Like I go to bed every night and pray, like, oh, if my dad can just make it to my high school graduation, that would be great. And so the morning of my high school graduation, he's looking at me with these like teary eyes and like, yeah, buddy, I'm not going to make it today. And then I come home from the graduation parties and he's in the hospital. And then from the hospital, he's in hospice, right? And it's this low testosterone lifestyle. And so that it never affected me. Like it motivated me. It's the reason I got into fitness is clearly my dad, but things like that would never hit me emotionally until I became a dad. And now it's like heartbreaking even walking around Disneyland, right? It's heartbreak. Like I know I coach men and women, but it's like, dude, man, we got to step up and be leaders and role models. And if someone hasn't heard me talk before, hasn't heard you talk about sapient lifestyle or high testosterone lifestyle or winning the hormone game, and they're out there trying to figure it out with like the Lane Norton advice, where it's like, oh, well, maybe we run into a few right answers, but then it's always ends up being hard again, right? There's nothing that I do that's hard. Like everything is abundance. I get abundant sleep. I wake up feeling super energized. I don't need 6 cups of coffee I don't need any coffee, right? Like I can go through my day and every step makes the next step easier, right? And that's what people need to understand is what you and I do is truly easy, right? We're
Mhm.
not surviving a long, cold winter. We're thriving in a warm, sunny day.
Constantly. It's the best part about this. That's actually bigger than my personal journey with my family. My bigger why and why I do this is because I found it so simple and easy. I just wanted to tell the world. That was my motivating factor is I want to spread information about how easy and satisfying this is. I did it very simply by changing a few things and I had such great results. I just wanted to tell the world. I don't know why that motivates me so much. I'm just so interested in telling people like this, you can do this. This is
Yeah,
easy. Like let's do it.
dude,
And yeah,
I was gonna say that's so great. Like literally on my mirror in my bathroom, it's like my mission in life is spreading natural hormone optimization so that everyone can look their best, feel their best, and be their best. Right? It's like once you've cracked this code, it's like why wouldn't you want everyone to know?
I
And so,
know.
it's interesting what you started saying there about like your mission and spreading this message is when a new person comes and wants to work with me, I'm going to first ask them like, what's the ideal? Like we have to establish the ideal. And it should be some variation of capturing those 7 dimensions of deep health, getting as far from metabolic syndrome as possible. Right. And then I always ask, well, what's the emotional trigger that's going to get you there? Because really what we do, like, I don't want to work with a client who is a fat caterpillar and their goal is to become a thinner caterpillar, right? I don't want to do goals where the goal is to change, because the thing is, the people that change always change back, right? And that's been their whole experience, because their whole experience is energy balance. I eat less, move more, so I can lose some and gain more, right? So I don't want. We got to cut off gain more. Like I say, the transformation is really 3 steps, and the people get mixed up which steps are hard and which steps are fun, right? So the 3 steps are decide. So we choose this higher ideal, and then we tie that to an emotional trigger, like a reason we have to have it. So we decide, we transform, and we sustain. And the decision is actually the hardest part. It's saying it's the right time in my life, and I'm ready to make a genuine commitment. And so one of the things we do there is we take this ideal that gets you excited. Like there's no a goal that is not exciting is it never works, because I want to lose 15 pounds. So you do it, nobody notices, nobody cares, and you're like, well, why am I doing anything? I'm going to gain the 15 pounds back, right? So we don't want to change, we want to transform. I want to take you all the way to deep health. Wherever you start, I want to take you all the way to deep health. So I have a client who's 6'1", 330, and a client that's 6'1", 250. If they're both trying to get to Los Angeles, right? If they're both trying to get to LA, one is maybe starting in Sacramento and the other one is starting in Fairbanks, Alaska. But we can drive them both here. We just have to keep going. And so the fuel for that journey is the emotional trigger. It's that, Brian, who doesn't want to look better, feel better, be better? Who wouldn't want to have the effortless lifestyle that we have? But it's not going from fat caterpillar to thin caterpillar and back again. It's going from fat caterpillar to butterfly, right? It's making the permanent transformation, the transformation that we sustain. And so, yeah, it's emotional trigger to get there. And people, if you tap into how you feel now and you're honest with yourself, are there these darker emotions of fear, shame, hate, embarrassment? Is there a voice in your head that you want to shut up? Is there maybe, I think one that's incredibly powerful, especially for me, having lost my dad, is I had this client come to me. He's like, yeah, my dad's always been pretty fit and I've always been pretty fat. And he's always talking to me about how he wants me to get in shape. And so It's not that you want to rebel against your dad and be like, I'm healthy at any weight. It's that no, you would actually love it. You know, it's you're giving your dad what he wants by you finally getting healthy. And this is like a 65-year-old dad and a 40-year-old man, right? You're giving your dad what he wants, but you're also shutting him up, right? This little voice of like, son, you need to get in shape. You need to get in shape. Like he would stop saying that. And then he would be so happy for you if you did it. But where there's these emotional triggers where we got to transmute the pain into these good feelings, right? That's really the fuel to get there because winners and losers all have the same goals. Like if you could just ask anyone in the world, like, oh, well, would you rather have Chris's 7 dimensions of deep health with the 6-pack and the perfect blood pressure and the high testosterone and the great sex drive and the awesome libido? Would you rather have that or would you rather be 330 with none of those things? Well, everyone's going to pick this thing, but we have to actually have the fuel to do it, right? Even if it is easier every step, and I say that, Brian, is you and I know that like what we do doesn't take a ton of willpower, right? It takes almost no willpower. I would say there's no willpower involved, but there is a sacrifice. And that sacrifice that you've made and I've made and my clients make is you have to sacrifice your old life. You have to sacrifice being the fat caterpillar. I know in your transformation, just like me in your 20s, you subscribed to all those things I subscribe to, right? Like I'm going to eat less. I'm going to move more. I'm going to follow the mainstream. Maybe I'll go to GNC and get some protein
Food
powders or
pyramid.
something.
Yeah, food pyramid. Just I was a food pyramid guy. Like eat the whole grains and the avoid meat. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and dude, somewhere I wrote an article about this, but even with my dad's cancer, right? He's got type 2 diabetes and cancer. And now we really got to get healthy at my house. And this is like from 6th grade to 12th grade. Is okay, we're going to start eating the American Diabetes Association diet, which is the food pyramid, right? So me and my mom and my brother and my dad, we're like wolfing down plates after plates, plate after plate of like pasta, right? Of just regular uh, uh, wheat pasta, right? That's the healthy kind, right? The wheat pasta, the dark wheat pasta. And so we're wolfing down plates after plates of it. Plate after plate of pasta. We're wolfing down plate after plate of pasta. And you know that like right on your tongue, the amylase enzyme instantly cutting that wheat carbohydrate into pure sugar, hits the bloodstream, goes straight to the cancer cells, right? To feed that tumor growing on my dad's prostate, right? And not that, I would never say I'm a low carb guy. We got to put the carbs into the gasoline engine and cut the grass with it to have the energy to do that. But literally everything that we heard from the mainstream during my dad's cancer was exactly wrong. And so we did some other alternative medicine that, people want to talk to me one-on-one about, where he actually made it through 6 years after being, terminal in 6th grade, like really battled. And it took everything out of him to his deathbed to battle as long as he did. But where all the mainstream advice was so bad is like, oh, well, these cancer patients, they have trouble keeping weight on. Let's just drink some glucerna shakes. Like you want to pull up what's in a glucerna shake,
Oh man.
right? Like this is not how we're trying to heal from cancer. And so it's getting out of the mainstream. And really, like I was saying, Brian, we got to sacrifice the person we are now for the person that we can be, right? We have to make the transformation. And so there is a sacrifice, but it's not willpower. It's just what we have to do, the high testosterone lifestyle or the sapien style lifestyle instead of the standard DLE, right? The default settings for an American's diet, lifestyle, and environment are terrible. And we have to reset to the factory settings for diet, lifestyle, and environment. And when we do that, we unlock all 7 dimensions of deep health. And so it's our simple morning routine. It's the way we work out, how we can work out less to get more. It's that we do everything to optimize hormones up into the point where at night, we got to turn serotonin into melatonin and get better sleep. And then you wake up, you feel better every day.
So this is great. I tell people too, it doesn't take more willpower. It's not harder. It's just different. And it's just about the
Yeah.
change. You're saying you got to sacrifice your old person. I just say it's just the change is hard. Humans don't like to change. And I use a job analogy. It's like your dream job is out there, but and it's going to be way better once you get into it, but it is hard to change. You got to go there, meet new people, you got to learn the new rules. It's like nerve-wracking, you have anxiety. But then once, 6 months in, you're like, this is amazing, this is my dream job. So we're talking about the dream job. Yeah, it's a little uncomfortable to change, right? Because you got to like apply for the new job and go through the new training. And it's I've gotten new jobs and it sucks, but then once you're in it, it's amazing. And it so like we're saying, it doesn't require more willpower, it's just different than what you're doing currently. And so yes, it's hard to change because everyone wants to do the same things and go to whatever Chili's with your friends on the weekends or whatever people do, right? And
Whatever
now
people do.
whatever people, I have no idea what people do because I don't do that. But it's not harder, it's just different. And I mean, I guess maybe it is hard. You have to find some new friends that don't want to go to Chili's on the weekends. Okay, I'm not going to say it's like a walk in the park. Yeah, you got to change some things, but I want people to know that it's going to be just as satisfying when they're on the other side, that they're going to be happier. It's not going to be harder. And before we go, though, I want to talk about food just real quick because I know people assume that you're on the right track with food, sapient diet. You're talking about the sugar cookies. It's not like you're saying people should eat sugar cookies. We're on the same page. Like, what is your like 1 minute like diet philosophy, just to let people know?
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to that chateau, right? Is we want the right amounts of the right things, but it really depends on where someone is in their journey, right? So the outside of sleep, the biggest lever you can pull is getting enough protein, right? For the renovations. And so we need a whole foods, meat-based diet, not not protein powders, not protein bars, not pea protein, a whole foods, animal-based diet, a meat-based diet. Number one, sapient checkmark. Okay. We need that abundant. We're trying to use that to trigger leptin so we're not hungry anymore. The point isn't to fill up on salad and high fiber foods until our stomachs are stretched uncomfortably. It's that we need to eat the right amount of protein and do things in the right order. And so this is where like there are so many details that I'll go over with clients in an onboarding call that we gotta the sequence of everything matters.
Mm-hmm.
That lever is abundant protein, animal-based diet. Number two, to support your testosterone production is we need to fill that gas tank up in the lawnmower. So it's not zero carb. It's not even what I would call low carb, but it's appropriate carb. And then you and I would agree on all the carb sources. Like my carb sources is not like, oh, it's sugar cookies every day. It's, if I just, I would go white rice, potatoes, yams, maybe a rice-based pasta, fresh fruit, uh, whole foods, right? Things that we can
Amazing.
see like oranges, apples, bananas, berries, etc. Right? So sapient style carbs, and then the question becomes in what cuts of meat do I have, and how much fat do I need for that person, right? And so if you have a lot of excess fat to burn, we've got to control the amount of fat in the diet to get you there. And so the whole point is to get you to the promised land. And I think one of the things you were saying about, like the regular person, what do? They go out to Chili's with their friends and they get the $5 appetizer or whatever. Is we've probably all heard that like you're the average of the five people closest to you, right, Brian? And so one of the things that I do is I get into my clients' top five, like the people I work with around the world, and I really try to limit it to about 100 people at a time. Is I get into their top five. And so, in terms of their health, their fitness, their wellness, their physique, is I ruin the curve on that average, right? I pull everyone up
Mm.
towards me.
Oh, I get it. You're now one of their top five
Yeah.
influences.
And so, if I'm having that influence, and then, all my clients, there's a little bit of daily accountability, right? It's not we have to spend, you know, hours a day talking to each other, but we just need to have open lines of communication and have this little feeling of accountability, like Chris is actually watching. But even bigger than that accountability is, like you just asked about the diet, is there's always absolute certainty. Like whenever they have a question, they don't go to Google. where they get 10,000 answers that say one thing and 10,000 answers that say nothing. They don't go even to a podcast where, maybe you have one guest that says one thing and one guest that says the opposite. They can, who's the vegan doctor you had on the other day?
Oh, Dr. Joel Kahn.
Dr. Joel, the con man Kahn, dude.
Yeah.
Well, carnivores have a lower vitamin C. Dr. Kahn, vitamin C is not a vitamin, right? If you have low vitamin C, you're supposed to get scurvy. Do you see any carnivores out there getting scurvy? No, because scurvy is actually a disease where you're not able to produce collagen. Does Dr. Sean Baker have any trouble producing collagen? No. Vitamin C is not a vitamin. Maybe this should be in the trailer for the episode. I just got really passionate about that. So if you get on the Dr. Khan episode, maybe you're like, oh, well, I'm going vegan, whole foods plant-based, right? So my clients always have direct access to me. So whenever there's a question, they just ask me. And it's like, if you just imagine a person drowning in quicksand, is I'm going to throw you the rope and I'm going to pull on my side of the rope. And I'm going to coach you how to pull on your side of the rope. And eventually you're not going to get lost over to the right or to the left or to the shortcut or drown in the sand pit. Eventually you're going to be pulled to safety. And that's what I do for my clients is I pull them to this high testosterone, and women, again, just bleep out testosterone.
Balance hormone.
Naturally optimized hormonal state where they can look their best, feel their best, and be their best, where they have all 7 dimensions of deep health just like I have it.
Oh,
but
man.
That's the deal, man. And like I said, I'm always working with about 100 people around the world where it's this relationship, this one-on-one communication. But if you want to send people to me, Brian, I'd be so happy. And it really is great because they're already primed from having heard, Peak Human or from having seen you on Instagram. And so those people, I love it because they come open-minded to be like, oh yeah, it should be sapien style. Like that's what I'm looking for. In fact, I talked to one guy the other day who's like, yeah, dude, I already order all this nose to tail stuff. And I'm like, oh, it's Brian Sanders. Awesome. It's like, yeah, will that be helpful? I'm like, yeah, that'll be helpful. That's great.
This is awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you're doing this instead of me. And I can just pass you the people that you're in good hands. So yeah, so how do people get a hold of you and what can they do?
So I would say the simplest way, and especially for people in your audience, just so I know who they are and I can kind of give them preferential treatment. Because honestly, if it's like a random person that found me because I did a cute Instagram reel versus someone coming from Peak Human, I want to put the emphasis on, send me those Peak Human people. So I'd say find me on Instagram at Kruger Body, KrugerBody, at Kruger Body. And then send me a DM that, says, oh, I listened to you on Peak Human, or I found you from Brian Sanders, or just, DM me the word sapien and I'm going to know that you're coming from Brian. And yeah, dude, it's awesome really to reconnect with you. And I think that for people in your audience, and this is these people come to me all the time, like I said, where I've listened to all these podcast episodes, or I've listened to, I've searched everything out on YouTube. And YouTube is another confusing place where it's like half the people say this, half the people say this, and then some people say really crazy stuff that's not either, right? And so for your audience to come and get like sapien style coaching, whole foods, meat-based, the appropriate amount of carbs, not that we have to be 0 carb carnivore and we're never going to eat a carb again. And, there's people where maybe carnivore is the right thing for them. And I appreciate that. And it's like, great. Yeah. And I have clients that because of the way they react to carbs, I coach them on carnivore. But there's a lot of people where it's like, dude, I went carnivore. I had no energy. I thought I was going to get my energy back. I thought something was going to flip. I never got it. And then next thing you know, I was eating endless Taco Bell or something. Yeah. Right. Like they're using all their willpower not to eat any carbs. And so it's, don't want that. Yeah, it's coaching people through to get to the ultimately to the result that they want, dude.
This is great. What if they don't have Instagram?
If they don't have Instagram, all right, women, you got to understand. I have an email address. It is ck@testosteronesuperchallenge.com. Men, email me there. Women, if you would rather email me at ck@krugerbody.com. It all goes to the same point, the same place. But yeah, I realized that my marketing, dude, for me, it is the high testosterone lifestyle. For my wife, who looks great, feels great, is amazing, it's not the high testosterone lifestyle, but it is a lifestyle that is naturally hormone optimized, right? And where we have to take into account your monthly cycle and work with that and not against it, right? And that's really what we're doing for men also is when you set yourself up to lose the Hunger Games is ultimately at some point you're working against your hormones, right? What we want to have is this lifestyle of abundance where we are always working with our hormones. And so whether you have men's hormones or women's hormones, we get them moving in the right direction where instead of being the wind in your face, they're the wind at your back blowing you into the right direction. So did I
Great words to go out on. Man, this is awesome. I think people got a lot out of this, and I encourage everyone to contact you because you're going to lead them in the right path. And thanks, man.
yeah, dude. Well, uh I'm just gonna have to come hang out with you at Sapien Center in Austin. Like we gotta
Oh
plan
man, I
something.
was trying to get you here earlier. Yeah, for an event. We'll see what we can do. 100%. I'll see you in LA too, maybe.
All right, buddy. All right, take care,
All right.
dude, and talk to you soon.
See ya.